What is happening, Miles Big's idea? It's an increasing influence Thursday. What's happening, brother?
Man, so much. It's been a busy day, busy couple days. I think I recorded 4 different podcasts last night. Claire's out of town.
Yeah.
So I was content crushing it and then sleeping without any kids in the house. So that's what's going on with me.
You have no kids in the house. So for everybody who doesn't know, Miles is a second round father now, right? He just had a newborn baby in the house. So sleep is vital these days.
Yep. So she's visiting her mom. She's me and the dog. Very quiet. It's weird, but I did sleep. So
good for you.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Well, good, because you're going to need all the energy you can get for today's show. Scott Carson's on today and full of energy, this one.
He is, and jokes. We're thinking we'll be laughing a lot on this one. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, no, this is going to be fun. So, all right, Miles, well, guess what? It is Thursday. It is 1 p.m. Eastern time, and we are on Increasing Influence. And every week we are trying to bring you the best and the brightest in the industry, and this week is no different. So at Dave Cooper Live, we are bringing you the people and the processes that are doing it better. Our guests and topics include experts in building systems, building science, building codes, and the tech used to build it better. It doesn't matter whether you're an investor, a builder, a marketer. We only have people on this show that are taking it to the next level and increasing their influence. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to continue to talk about on our Thursday show. What do you think, Miles? What do you think about Scott Carson? Should we bring him in?
Let's do it. I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
We may not have a show. He may just take over and we're just going to sit back and watch him go.
I'm all for that. He can interview us. Let's do that.
I love it. What's happening, Mr. Scott?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
I love it. He's got
happy Thursday from sunny Austin, Texas. The snowpocalypse is gone. It is a beautiful day here.
The snowpocalypse. Yeah. Did you have any broken pipes or any of that out where you're at?
No, lucky enough, we did not. We only were out power for about 12 hours compared to the rest of the state. Water was gone for a couple of days, but we got 8 inches of snow outside. If we needed extra water, we could boil it all. But pretty lucky. Food, power, everything stayed on here for the most part, and just kind of hung out and stayed warm.
I love it. I love it. So, Scott, I've been following what you've been doing and your influence. I mean, you're a real estate investor, obviously. You know, distressed properties, things of that nature. You're an entrepreneur. You're a podcaster. We're going to get into all of these things, you know, but most importantly, the increasing influence and why you decided to have a podcast and do other social media. But, you know, first, why don't you take a few moments and just tell everybody who you are? We want to know everything from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. And if you don't tell us everything, we will call your mothers, specifically Miles, and he can be mean.
Very mean.
That's funny. Yeah, no, that's awesome. No, guys, Scott Carson, Austin, Texas home. I'm the note across the world is the note guy, as you could say. What does that mean by the note guy? For the last 13 years, I've focused on buying, selling, and investing and educating other investors how to tap into the world of distressed debt or distressed notes. Buying residential, commercial mortgages direct from banks and institutions, and then working to keep the borrowers in the houses. So that's what I've done the last 13 years. Prior to that, I was a financial advisor and a mortgage banker. Grew up in South Texas, down in Corpus Christi. But one of the most important things I think I've done in my career is in 2010, after being divorced, after ending a business partnership, I decided that I wanted to drive across the country and catch all the baseball parks. So I literally put together a plan over 30 weeks to hit every Major League Baseball park. And through the power of social media and sharing what I was already doing with my real estate and my note business, in a matter of just a couple of weeks, I had a lot of people reach out to me at different clubs and investment seminars, say, hey, would you come speak on your niche? And I'm like, when do you want me to come speak? And they're like, come this date or this date or this date. And those dates all matched up perfectly with when I would be in town to watch either the Pirates or the Phillies or the Astros or the Rangers or the Chargers. So it was not the Chargers, the Padres anyway. But that was divine intervention, I say. So sold everything I owned in 2010 in a matter of a couple of weeks, jumped into my truck with my dog and started this magical journey of what I thought would be, close to just over a year, half a year travel, turned into 3.5 to 4 years of travel. And using the power of social media and leveraging it really helped me build the brand and kind of a grassroots effort into what I'm doing today. 10 years later, or 7 years later since I came back home to Austin, just an amazing ride. And it's a beautiful time to be an entrepreneur. And I don't care whether you're selling tiddlywinks, modular houses, notes, or whatever. We've never had such availability of tools and free, if not cheap, resources to help you build the brand and get the message out and what you're doing. So that's a little bit about me.
A little bit. That's a lot about you. I mean,
well, I do like pina coladas on the beach at sunsets. I don't think you want to talk about that.
Yeah. I could see us there, Scott. You and I, pina coladas. We're just not holding hands. All right.
No.
I love it. Well, hey, listen, I think the story's fabulous. I think the road trip is amazing. I'm glad you threw in my beloved Pirates in the beginning comments of that, being from Pittsburgh, even though they, in my opinion, are still just a minor league baseball team. They can never get over that mark. But on that note, no pun intended, Scott, let's kind of talk about this journey a little bit. All right, so you hopped in your truck, you traveled the country. At what point did you start really embracing social media?
Before that, because if I go back to what I'm doing, my niche is really a smaller niche inside the real estate investing field. There's not many people out there. And so I was starting kind of, if you go back to when I was a mortgage banker and mortgage broker, we embraced a little bit of this back in between 2004 and 2008. It wasn't the same as it is today. So we still embrace social media. Hey, we're your mortgage brokers, or we're working with real estate investors. And so when everything hit the fan with the mortgage in 2008, I just flipped the script and said, okay, instead of me originating, let me go after the people that are on the opposite side. And so I leveraged LinkedIn. I started getting deals from bankers, and I'm like, I got too much. I don't have enough to take down. I don't have the money to fund all this stuff because everything. And so I started sharing my journey, sharing my daily deals. Here's a deal that I'm working on, or I'd be in my office late at night with a whiteboard and breaking down deals, and I pull my camera out and flip my little flip camera back in the day, from Dell, with a little USB that would pop off it, and I talk about the deals and I'd upload it to YouTube and share it to Facebook. So I really kind of started embracing it early on, and even as I started traveling, I would, hey, we're going to do a conference call every Monday night at 7:00 or 8:00 Eastern, so people could kind of keep track of what I'm working on, and just kind of embrace it from the get-go. Nothing went viral, I guess you could say, what everybody thinks, 100,000 views. I didn't worry about that. And I think that's one big thing that a lot of people, they get, so, well, I can't compete with Gary Vaynerchuk, or I can't compete with, whoever it might be, Seth Godin or anything. And that's the thing I've always looked at. Like, I'm not competing with any of those. I'm simply getting the word out and wanting to do it. And if I can help one person watches or listens, then I'm spreading the word, and I'm doing better. If I can get one person, it's going to make a whole lot more value versus 100 people. Don't get me wrong, who doesn't want that more? But it all starts with one, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, for sure. Go, Miles. I know you're going to unpack that. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, we say that all the time, that consistency breeds authority, and it's more important than that virality you're talking about. That if you're in it for that one shot, you might get it, but it's what you can sustain that's the most important, right? And so I'm curious to hear from your opinion, because I agree with you. It's never been easier. I have my own podcast, this show with Dave, several other shows, right? You can spin up a new brand through a show very easily on the internet. And it makes sense to, and you look at all the data for businesses. So why don't people do it, Scott? What keeps people from getting in when we hear people from you? We know it works. We know it's not hard. The barrier to entry is low, but there's still a lot of people not entering. Why do you think that is?
Two things. One is confidence. People lack confidence. They don't know. It's almost like trying to eat an elephant. And I've always said, if you want to eat an elephant, start with one bite and not the ass end first. Okay. But yeah, you got to break it down. People get so confused. I mean, there's so much distractions out there. Do I need to be on TikTok? Do I need to be on Instagram? Do I need to use StreamYard, Restream, Facebook Lives, LinkedIn Live? It's really confusing, the amount of noise. And then I think that's the first thing. When I talk to my students, like, well, do I have to be everywhere? I'm like, no, you don't have to be everywhere. Let's start with who you're really trying to serve. And I don't think most people, they have an idea of what they want to do, but they don't really know their avatar or who they're really trying to reach. And I think that's the best thing that people can do when they're building a brand. Who's their ideal client? Is the message and what you're offering going to line up with what it is? I mean, if you're trying to sell coaching or trying to sell products that don't match up with your clients or your age group. Like, there was a guy that I was talking to, a young kid, 15, wanted to start a podcast the other day about cars. And I'm like, well, who's your audience? I'm gonna talk to new kids that are going to. Well, then I wouldn't necessarily talk about muscle cars and stuff like that. Talk about getting your license and simple things they can do to build that audience. Don't know what you're on. If you're trying to sell parts or trying to sell other things, your audience is going to have to ask mommy and daddy for their credit card. Is probably not going to give an okay on even $100 product, maybe a $7 or $19 product.
Right.
So really diving down and knowing who your listeners are, knowing who your audience is really, really key. I know you guys are doing like a video challenge. One of the things before I started my podcast 4 years ago, I was really hesitant. I didn't want to do all the extra work in editing. So I said, let's do Facebook Live. I saw Kevin Harrington speak in Vegas at a conference, and he talked about video being important. And so I was like, listen, let's jump on. So I came back to my office, and I said, let's do a Facebook Live every day for 150 days. And that's what we did. It helped us build a brand, helped us build an audience. It helped us get through the hiccups so we didn't sound so stupid. And at the end of 150 days, I was like, okay, let's start a podcast. We've got enough people on Facebook that want to see and show up on a regular basis. Let's go with that route. So it was a great test market that cost us basically nothing but time. So,
well, it's true. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's right. I mean, listen, that consistency is what it's all about. You have to be consistent, or whether one person shows up or 5 people show up, right? I mean, there are days where like, where is everybody? And there's days where you just don't know. The algorithm doesn't tag people. Like, you don't control how the social media is put it out there and tag everybody. And then there's other days where it seems like the world shows up, and you got to be consistent. And like you said, knowing who your audience is key. Our audience is construction, mainly that's where my audience is. Miles' audience, he's more in the Red Sea, he's kind of broadened out to the bigger Red Sea. But overall, I really think it comes down to consistency and not worrying about the likes and views. Just put the message out there, because people are listening. They are. I mean, there's people who don't even want to like and share or comment on the show. They're like, we listen to you all the time. I'm going, great. Say something. Yeah, no, I just like to listen and watch what you do. All right.
Thanks. Appreciate it. You're right about that. But there's another thing I think that when people don't know how to market, they're used to working for somebody else and getting marching orders. And while they do like and follow and start following other influencers out there, they're confused a little bit. But they're also, I think, scared of the haters, because we all have haters. There's all people out there. And a mentor of mine, Greg Reed, who's the author of Think and Grow Rich, 3 Free from Gold, and host of Secret Knock and stuff like that. He taught me early on that there's basically 3 groups of people out there. You have the one group of your friends, your families, your cheerleaders, your good clients. They're going to love you because they know you. On the opposite side of this spectrum, you have the haters out there that just have a dark hole for a soul, that aren't going to care what they're going to hate you because your color, your skin, your sex, your race, what you say, what you look like, how you dress. They're just going to find something ugly to hate about you,
right?
Because really come from they're jealous of the fact that you're stepping out of your comfort zone, and they don't have the huevos to do it. Okay, and ladies, you have huevos; they're just a little higher up. Okay, all right. But that, I mean this seriously, is you have those two groups. Well, we give more weight a lot of times. We're starting off to the haters than the people that love us. And what you have to really, really focus on is what Greg taught me, is focus on the people that love. You're not going to make everybody happy. Just get that 3-year thick head. Focus on that middle group that doesn't know you, that's on the fence, and you'll be a lot happier. And over time, as long as you're consistent, the haters will start to wear down. They'll either go away and go hate on somebody else, or B, they're going to come to be your fans. And then when you run into them, like, oh, I remember back when you started, and you're like, yeah, I know you hating on me, saying bad things about me, but hey, it's okay. It's all right now. But that's something I've embraced over the last 12 years is, look, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I am me. If you like me, great. If you don't, hey, love you anyway, but I don't need you.
There's only one you.
Thank God.
And right? And there's nobody else being you that we know of. So I agree with you. Listen, speaking of Greg, we have Mr. Greg Ugaldi coming in from Twitch today. We go to Twitch because on this show, that's where the young people are. And Greg Ugaldi, I don't know if you know Greg, but he said, Dave, Jen, Miles, and Scott, I could listen to your show all day. Now,
What's up, Greg?
for you, Greg Ugaldi is the immediate past chairman of the National Association of Home Builders. He is the guy that walks in and updates the president of the United States a couple times a year when he's in his position. So having him join us all the time and make comments like that makes me smile. So, Miles, I'm just going to sit back and let you dive into this one because nobody hates on you, do they?
No comment. I got my fair share of that, and so I identify what you said. And what you said made me think of a question I wanted to ask you when I first learned of you, Scott, and started following your social media profiles. Someone else I've heard talk about haters and people that love you, but then also the naysayers, which can be like they're your friends, but they don't want you to do it. Like there's the weird middle ground. Is Dean Graziosi, and I saw that you had him on your podcast, and so selfishly, I'm curious how the heck you got Dean Graziosi on your podcast. But I think the story there will probably speak to increasing influence, right? Because you started, like you said, with the flip cam and the USB that plugged into your computer. Now to the person who, if you guys are watching this and aren't familiar with Dean Graziosi, look him up. He's in the same circle of people like Tony Robbins. He's a huge name in the Red Sea, as they would say. So that's a big deal. What's the story there?
So we're all 1 degree away from Kevin Bacon these days. And I was fortunate enough that Dean interviewed on a buddy of mine's podcast, Joe Fear and Matt Wolf from the Hustle and Flow Chart podcast. And I met Joe and Matt a couple years ago at a podcasting conference. We hit it off, guess what? And I reached out to him because Dean's in my top 100. And I think as a podcaster, you need to make a list of your top 100 guests or top 100 influencers. And Dean's like number 2, number 3 for me. And I saw this and I reached out. I said, hey, Dean's a real estate investor. I have a real estate niche podcast. I know that he does a lot. Love the episode. Is there any way that you could make the introduction? And Joe was like, yeah, I'll make an introduction. His assistant, he wrote an email copy, a glowing, testimony about my podcast. I want it to be valuable to Dean. And so that's how it worked out. Dean had to reschedule once because he was sick. And then very lucky, I interviewed Dean when we had all the crap going down here in town with Snowmageddon. We literally finished the interview and we're talking like 30 seconds after I hit the stop record button and the power goes out in all of us.
Oh, man.
So and that's the big thing. I think you just have to reach out and be consistent. It's nice to have people that introduce you, a third party. Dean hit it off on their podcast.
Right.
So it was an easy introduction. I just got turned down yesterday by one of my top 2 guys, Seth Godin, the author of Tribes and such a great speaker. I reached out to him via email. He turned me down. Okay. No does not mean no. It means not now. So I will follow up with Seth now that I have his direct email every quarter if I have to.
Yeah.
So that's just the big thing. Dean was a great interview. He had a lot of great energy, a lot of great nuggets, and he's got a point of serving now. And you're starting to see a lot of people that are doing that and using the power of podcasts to serve. Mark Victor Hansen is a great example. He's now become a buddy of mine. And back in February of last year, he had his new book, Ask and Your Dreams Will Come, came out. And, of course, with COVID, it shut everything down as far as book signings and travel. So him and his wife, Crystal Dwyer Hansen, they leveraged podcasts. They were on 4 to 5 podcasts sometimes a day in getting their media tour out from them. And I met him through that, had him on my podcast. We visited, hit him off. I helped him get booked on. He's helped me get booked on podcasts. So it's all about, I think, just building that connection and realizing if you see people on podcasts, you're basically one introduction away from getting somebody huge that can really influence your business and motivate it.
Right. Yeah, I love that. I think that's a big point, right? When people think about influence, it's not just your direct influence, but you can magnify things by reaching into your network. And like you said, the degree connections away connect you to this person, this person, this person. And another key word you said there, serve, like Dean said that. But when you have that mindset, even if you're not as big as Dean, that's how you get those people to write those glowing emails as introductions, right? When you are worried about what's good for them, not just what's good for you, it finds its way back to you. Back to your point about divine intervention in the road trip or the power staying on until you are done, right? It's another example of how that can work for you.
And that's the thing, too, these days with podcasts and LinkedIn, there's great ways for you to reach out to people and kind of make an impact. I mean, it's great to follow people on social media. But I think one of the things that I've leveraged that's helped me out recently is if I see somebody that I want to be on their show or a guest, I'll see if they have a LinkedIn profile. I'm going to literally go on to their LinkedIn and leave a glowing recommendation and like how they helped me or how they've been an influence or I love their book. And it's surprisingly people like, oh my God, thank you for the recommendation. Is there anything you do? And I'm like, yeah, you want to be a guest on my podcast and syndicated radio show? I'm like, oh my God, yeah, let's do it. And so that's pretty easy to reach out and start that conversation like it's never been before, But,
yeah, that's awesome.
Love it. Sorry, guys. We got company.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, company. So we're in the midst of doing something. So I'm gonna pop in and out. You guys keep that conversation.
Yeah, you're good. You said something I wanted to touch on too. You're giving me the segues. This is great. You said syndicated radio. So you've got your business, your main business. You've got the podcast. Where does the radio show fit in? How did that come to pass?
So yeah, radio. I'm an ex-college DJ. When I was going to college, playing college football outside of Dallas, I was a mass comm major, so I had a radio show at like midnight, a night out, kind of like you are, Miles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I actually had a radio show too when I was in college. So
there you go. See, there we go. That's why we get along so well. So, I just, it's just networking. I'm always looking for another way to share my message. That doesn't mean I want to go out and create new work for me. I want to find some other way that I can take my 2 or 3 or 5 podcasts I record and get it out there. And I had another podcasting buddy of mine that goes on. We got to talking, and he had just bought this internet radio station network of 15 or 17 channels all across the country from Tampa to Long Beach. And he's like, I'm looking for people to come on that can fill an hour on a show. And I'm like, okay. Most radio, I'm thinking, okay, it's 10 grand an hour, stuff like that. And he's like, no. It's all internet. The guys live in Newport Richey, Florida, and they have these shows, this whole 24-hour schedule. If you want a spot, it's pretty cheap, like $150 for an hour for like Monday night at 6 o'clock all month long. I was like, that's ridiculously cheap. What do I have to do? Do I have to figure ads? And like, no. Just fill an hour. Use your own ads. And so I was like, okay, great. I'll take 6. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, I'll take an hour every day if I can. So I signed up for 6 hours, and basically I take my podcast audio that, I film with Zoom, like we're filming with Zoom,
right? 45
minutes to an hour. I then will, upload it to YouTube, and then I take the audio strip and I just send it over to the radio station network. If it's a less than an hour, I'll fill it in with mini episodes or mini nuggets, or even run my own ads in there. And now I'm syndicated across the country from East Coast to the West Coast, even in Pittsburgh. It plays in Pittsburgh too, where Dave is from, Tampa. And it's been a great addition. Now I'm going to say now, don't get me wrong, it's not like iHeartRadio, but I'm still can now say that my show is nationally syndicated, and we get somewhere between 90,000 listeners per hour that we're on there, and it's a couple million listeners each month. And so it's an easy way to add another, I guess you could say, web for my marketing to get it out there to listeners that maybe wouldn't come across me originally. It's also been an added way to add sponsors, because now I can say to my sponsors, listen, you can sponsor my show, and now you're going to be on the radio every week a couple times and go from there. So I just found an opportunity. It's a bit of an investment. I'm paying a couple $100 every a couple $1,000 every month, but it's paid off tenfold in getting the word out and what we're doing even more to more people.
Right. Yeah, and then like you said, you can show the increase in views, which then you can charge more for the ads and pay for it and then some, and it goes from. So what you touched on there, though, you've done it for so long. You're like, oh, no big deal. I did this, right? But to break that down for everybody watching, this is what we talk about a lot, where if you're going to have a radio show in addition to podcast, it doesn't mean it needs to be a completely different effort. Like you said, it doesn't have to be more work. You could take something you're already doing and repurpose it a little bit and then extend the life of that. Going back to the question I asked you earlier about why people don't get in, I think that's a big part of it, is they feel like it's going to be too much work.
Yeah.
They think they need to have all these things. Even though you don't start everywhere, you can end up everywhere from where you start by doing what you're doing and repurposing things. But you have to start. You got to get in the game before you can really extend what you're doing. Otherwise, you will never get to where you're doing right now.
Yeah, that's big. I didn't want to do a podcast. I had friends approach me because I've been doing videos and webinars, recording that for years. Like, oh, you should do a podcast. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do all that extra work or editing. No, I'm a one-take guy. Let me slap it on YouTube or Facebook. I'm good that way. And I started doing those Facebook Lives, and a couple students of mine had started a podcast, and they were successful. I was like, oh, that's their thing. I don't want to step on their toes. Well, then I find out that they're no longer doing the podcast. Like, oh, we're going our separate ways. And like, there's just this big gaping hole. I'm like, okay, I guess we're doing a podcast now. And I reached out to some friends And I'm like, I don't want to. Can we walk me through this? And like, oh, we'll do all the editing for you. I'm like, oh,
Done.
Where do I got to sign? And that we kind of fell into a gaping hole where they had built this following of this podcast, and it just left them hanging. And so a lot of their clients came over. So we built an instantaneous following. We hit 100,000 downloads in like our first by our fourth month.
Wow.
And we just surpassed the 1 million download mark in December. And I always kind of crack up. It's like, it's a small niche podcast. It's not everything general. The riches are in the niches, as they say. And I screwed up along the way. I did a lot of stupid things, fell flat in my face in a couple things, but I just got better at what I did. I honed my skill and just, I use the term embrace the suck. And I think so many people want to be polished off the bat. I'm like, the only way you get to be polished is by embracing the suck and failing forward.
I agree. You can read about podcasting as much as you want, but until you actually do it, you don't fully grasp it or understand it or then refine those skills. You got to learn by doing with some of this stuff.
Are you saying I need to podcast now, Miles?
Yes. I ponied up and started doing the video, Dave, which you got on me about.
This is a podcast these days. I mean, that's one thing I think a lot of the old school guys, and I've been at a couple podcasting conferences and argued with some of the old dogs in the podcasting where like, oh, it's got to be pure audio. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. It's a show. And it's the 21st century. Let Scotty beam you up, okay, into the 21st century, a Facebook Live, Restream, Zoom, whatever. Take that audio and just replicate it, upload it, and now you've got a podcast. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to spend $1,000 on audio equipment. I mean, you could use Facebook Live and then download the video and go from there if you want to. It's gotten so much simpler these days.
It is simple. Miles was running around at the IBS last year. Miles, you had your Apple iPhone, you had a dual mic, connector that you could run both mics, and you were doing podcast interviews on the fly at the show.
Yeah, I had lavalier mics plugged into my iPhone. Clip out them on people, done. And then you upload it, and some editing to reduce background noise, but it wasn't a heavy lift. And yeah, it's even in the last. So I've been doing it for 3 years. When I first started 3 years ago, it was way more complicated than it is now. So it continues to get easier and easier, and the low cost technology that's out there does so well. You don't have to spend thousands, like you said.
Yeah, it's the cost of barrier to entry has gotten so much lower. Even with video, everybody's doing video these days on every platform from your phone. The only platform I think that really has lost value over the last year has been LinkedIn, and not releasing LinkedIn Live on a mass basis like others have done. And that's, we leverage LinkedIn's where a lot of our marketing goes to our clients. And I'm like scratching my head. I'm like, I've applied 3 times, and I got these yahoos over here don't do near the amount of marketing we do. Got approved, and I'm like, it just drives me bonkers for stuff like that. But that's just sharing is one of the biggest things.
Yeah, well, it is true. Like even with LinkedIn, more and more people are getting it, but there's no rhyme or reason why or who or how they get it, right? And but for those that do get it, I think there's value to that too, right?
Yeah, totally. So as long as you use it consistently, you know what I mean? Use it or lose it.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, moving on with some of this conversation. Sorry, I got interrupted there. They came and took my seats. Literally took my seat I was sitting on.
Wow. You got to pay your bills, Dave, or they come repo that stuff.
They took them from underneath me. That's why I'm outside now. It's funny. We're getting service work done, and they're just hustling and getting things done. All right, so speaking about, like the social media, the LinkedIn, hopping into it and just doing these things, Scott, and the consistency of it. And I know we talk about people being scared of it. And I'm going to wrap this up somehow. One of my goals and why I do this is in our industry, we're in last place when it comes to innovation and technology. Last place. Construction. You know that. I know that, right? Agriculture's ahead of us. I want more people to do this. I want more people to be out here putting themselves out there to drive our industry forward. And I have still yet to find the secret sauce to get enough people to do it. We got a couple that are starting to do it, that have been following us and we worked with. But, how do we grow the importance of how this can help define and change an industry in your mind? How does it define and change an industry? And that's kind of our goal, or at least my goal.
So I think one of the best things you can do is you have to bring the united forces together that are embracing it. To get a couple of years back when I was tired of traveling, was at home a lot of times, and tired of speaking to a lot of the same people. I embraced the online aspect of what I was doing and started doing online workshops. And I decided to do, instead of all these conferences that were going on, I decided to do an online conference. And I started off by bringing 4 or 5 of my peers. Sometimes some would say would be competitors. I don't look at it that way. I look at there's enough to go around. So we did a one-day kind of a live stream embracing what we were doing and sharing that stuff. And then, of course, we shared it across the board. We reached out to people in our industry, sponsors, vendors, stuff like that, to get them to be a part of that. And that was because that's the most powerful thing you do, is getting the word out. And a lot of people don't understand it. And they may know you, but when you hear somebody else, hear Miles talking about the same thing, hear Scott or Steve or Greg talking it, that adds a lot of more influence. Like, oh, well, it isn't just Dave talking out his ass. It's actually everybody's talking out their ass. Maybe I need to pay attention to this a little bit more so. And I think that's building that wave, building that momentum is a lot easier to do when you've got multiple people doing it. If you're trying to do it yourself and crank it out there, yeah, it's a heavy road to hoe. But if you can add in other people that are like-minded, even a little similar flavor to it, that adds, I think, a lot more value and can add so much momentum. Now you've got something that maybe starts off with 100. Oh, now you got 200 that are showing up, or 500 people that are showing up in a couple of years. And that's really how you build the momentum. You got to light the fire and then share it with people and let everybody else kind of build it and go from there, if that makes sense.
You're muted, Dave.
It does. And I think that, Miles, you're kind of a prime example of this, where you started out in podcasts, then you started doing video, then you started your own live, Monday show talking about unseen work. Are you seeing the value out of that, Miles, and going to these different platforms and having more access to more people to help grow influence and increase influence and your reach?
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of it, like what people need, not just hearing people talk out their ass, right, is a kick in the ass, right? Yeah. But is a place to start small. Like, I think a lot of people watch what we're doing and they get, some of them to the radio show, right? They get overwhelmed on, oh man, I got to go to where they're at. And it's not where we're at, it's where we've been. And that's what I love about my shtick with unseen work. That's what my book's called, Scott. And I talk about how, like, you're seen as the note guy, but you have so much unseen work, things that you had to do to get to become the note guy that we don't know about. And that's where people need to start, is back there, right? So I think, like, for me, I started with just, like you said, single edit. I started doing video, walking my dog, holding my phone like this.
Selfie
style, 1 minute video, like whatever I was thinking about, posting it on social media. Then I got more and more comfortable with the camera. Then I applied to LinkedIn Live, got LinkedIn Live because they saw me doing all these videos.
That didn't make them feel any better, Miles.
Well, I want to tell you about a trick I used to get LinkedIn Live that I'll keep secret but share with you offline that maybe will help you. But I think it just starts there. So I think you got to break it down even like simpler, granular. And I think some people, you would need to literally say, download this app. Here's the step-by-step guide. And you have to make it super easy for them to get started, because there's so many options and it is so easy, but that also makes it hard because people aren't sure which path to go, right? So then they don't start. So I think it's probably what's great with your courses online, your conferences, is people want the answer. So I think if you could package up the answer and give it to them, then they'll take it and run with it. But if they have to find it for themselves, it's rare that somebody's going to create their own path. They're going to wait for it to be spoon-fed and get into it. So
yeah, there's no 8-minute abs of social media influence for the most part. You just got to show up on a day in, day out and put those crunches into work.
We have what's his name? Who's the karate guy to market with us? Does all the workout things.
Chuck Norris. The karate guy. Chuck Norris. Yeah.
Right? Isn't he the one that does the workout stuff? Like, hey, this machine or that machine? Yeah, no doubt. So tell me, Scott, tell me about this 5% extra. What do you mean by 5% extra?
It falls in line with a lot of times people will get into just doing the bare minimum to get by. And think with your employee mindset, you put in 40 hours a week. And I think as an entrepreneur mindset, and honestly, everybody these days is as an entrepreneur, we're all in the media space with anything. And this comes down to sales. It comes down to doing just a little bit extra each day. And yeah, if you put in the bare minimum, you're going to get bare minimum results. All right. If you put in a little bit extra, that extra 5% over the series of a month, 60 days, 90 days, you end up adding a lot more work, a lot more influence, a lot more activity. Get better. Think about Elon Musk. I love one of the best quotes from Elon Musk is the fact is that he started off, he didn't just work 40 hours a week. He worked 80 hours a week. So he outworked his competition. So he had results twice as fast as most people. And that's the biggest thing. When you think about the need to follow up, the thing to put in a little bit more, that 5% is not asking a lot. We're not saying 50% more or 100% more. Hey, when you think you're done, make one more phone call, make two more phone calls, do one more post, start banking that 5%, and it pays off because now you stand out from the crowd. That little bit extra adds up, and before you know it, you've put in an extra week of work in a month or a month of work in a year because you just a little bit extra and you get that much further along.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it all adds up, right? I mean, this is the consistency. This is putting in the extra time. They always say that luck is the results of hard work.
Yeah.
Right.
So the truth.
That's what they say. I'm still waiting though. I'm working hard, man. I'm working hard.
Well, you got to realize but that's the thing. You're doing things, and that's as long as you're taking activity and moving forward and talking with peers. That's the thing is, I think we all need coaches that have been where we want to be, and I think the most successful people are the most approachable people.
That's right.
And if you can find a coach or somebody along the way who's where you want to be, talk to them, ask them, because they'll tell you, hey, what do I need to do? Here, hey, you don't need to do this all right now. Start like with what Miles said. Start with the simple stuff. Start with A, B, C before you worry about X, Y, Z. And start getting it. When you hone that, then go to D, go to E, go to F. But you got to understand the basics first and foremost. And that's what people don't have the patience for that. I mean, let's face it. It's really only about 5% of people that do anything out there that will take the time. And the amount of classes I've taught, it's 5 to 10% of people that really will do something. It's sad. It's downright disappointing. But that 5%, they're the ones that are going to hone the craft. And honestly, successful people like us on here, we'll nurture those people. We're glad to give those people time because we see them struggling, out hustling, and trying to make things work, Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the truth, though, too. People always say, even you mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk a lot, and he even says, he goes, even if I do put it out here, there's only 5% of the people who actually do something with it. So I'm not really creating much competition for myself in this realm. And I think that's kind of the point you're making there. And I agree with that. I have no problem putting anything out that we're doing. I always do. We talk about what we use, how we do it, set up, live. We were talking about people are scared or they don't have the confidence. It's live. If it can go wrong, it will. They weren't supposed to show up. That wasn't supposed to happen right now. We had this for later in the day. But listen, just got to roll with the punches, have fun with it, and it's real. And I tell everybody this. This is what's so great about the show and live shows is that it's real. People love reality TV for a reason. It's not canned marketing. It's not BS. This is life. We're living it. We're putting it out there. We're trying to make it. We're trying to do the things right to grow our social media channels and what have you. These are the things that happen. So welcome on the journey.
Gary said something years ago, and I was a big fan when he had the Ask Gary Vee show. And I would find myself spending an hour each day watching Gary talk. At the point where I was like, these are the same 12 rants. Okay. It's like a dozen rants that he basically rants through when he's asking the same basic questions.
Right.
And wait a second. I got to stop watching Gary Vee because I'm losing an hour each day that I'm giving to Gary that I could be doing more with myself. And he even says that. That's what I respect about Gary so much. It's like, quit watching me. Quit watching me. Quit wasting time hearing the same 12 things I'm talking about and actually get out there and put that hour to work. And it's funny. I've spoken on a couple stages with him, had a chance to meet with him a couple of times before in the past. And he's as authentic as they get.
Yeah.
And it's funny, the older that he gets, I think he's getting a little bit more jaded because I think he's tired of answering the same damn questions that people, it's like an attorney, people don't want to do the work. Work is a four-letter word. So they think if they ask the question differently, they're going to find a shortcut. And we know what happens, especially in construction. If you do any shortcuts, your business isn't going to be the level that building is going to wobble down and fall eventually. You got to put the work in. You got to start taking action, doing the little things here and there to grow. And, we've all experienced the ups and downs and peaks and valleys. And it's at some point, when you get going, the valleys are higher than the peaks ever were when you started off with. And you're going to fail. You're going to stub your toe. Anybody who's been successful has gone through really good ups and downs. And honestly, put it out there. You've got to burn the bridges. You got to let go of that rail you're holding on to at some point and really dive in. Otherwise, you can't, I will never take advice from somebody who has a full-time job on an entrepreneurial subject. A paid employee can't teach an entrepreneur how to succeed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've got to be out there. You've got to be living it, and you got to be rocking and rolling it with it. And that's really the only way. You've got to have your feet in the fire and get rocking and rolling with it at some point. So. Oh
yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Take training wheels off, right? And if you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to be prepared to bleed. That's how they put it. Somebody who's an employee that works for, a company, whoever started that company was the entrepreneur and went through all the bloodshed and set it up and put processes in place to be successful, right? When you're an entrepreneur, especially when you're doing new things, breaking new grounds in different industries, every turn's, another brick wall or a concrete wall or, a steel wall sometimes. But, that's just part of it. Sometimes you got to poke your head through the hole and keep going. I wish I was like a rat where I didn't have bones. I had cartilage and I could just get through those little cracks and crevices and move on to the next one, but unfortunately I just get stopped.
Well, that's everybody runs into. I think we get so used to people talking about the way business is done. You've got to go this way. Yeah. And then when you hit a wall, it's the people that are the most creative don't look as a wall as stop in the face. They look, okay, can I go over it? Can I go over it? Can I go around it? Or do I even need to worry about this wall and just turn 90 degrees and go a different direction? I think that's one of the biggest things. If you can get creative and think outside the box. When we went from doing in-person events to virtual events years ago, my whole staff was like, oh, this is not going to work. You're going to fail. And I laughed. I was like, oh, tell me I can't do something now. I'm going to prove you wrong. And so we did our first virtual event and it just succeeded. So the Monday after, I'm picking the phone. They're like, oh, how'd it go? I was like, it went great. I don't need your services anymore. Thank you very much. And it's okay to think outside the box. Sometimes the craziest harebrained ideas lead to solving issues and making things happen. I mean, look at all the science fiction movies from 20 years ago, and a lot of the stuff that they had in those movies are now real life for us. Somebody had to think outside the box.
Right. Somebody had to build the box before somebody else could think inside of it. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a T-shirt right there.
There you go. Add it to the list.
We don't think inside the boxes. We build them.
Oh, good stuff.
I love it. All right, Scott. So tell us, man, what's on the horizon for you? What's the next greatest thing, or what are you working on? Where are you headed? What should people know about Scott Carson that they don't know already?
Well, we're always evaluating where we're at and what the market's doing. With everything being crazy here in the real estate industry, with these forbearance agreements, and I say the government kicking the can down the road here with foreclosure delays. We're going to be busy this year. We see a lot of distressed debt already on the book. So we're just going to keep doing what we're doing and buying distressed debt. But the thing that we have embraced a lot is giving away a lot of our best stuff. We're actually in the midst of a kind of a 20-day note investing challenge with a lot of stuff where we're about daily lesson on two topics, one how to find deals and one how to fund deals. And that's what we see as the biggest questions people are always looking for. How do I fund stuff, or how do I go out and find this stuff? So we're literally giving them the roadmap to do it in bite-sized nuggets, sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 30-minute videos to help them out there. And then we're taking those videos, we're transcribing them, turning them into a book, turning into its own training class. There'll be content for our podcast as well. So we're in the midst of that right now. And then we're looking at, once things get lightened up, probably hitting the road a little bit more in our top 40 to 50 markets across the country with book signing and getting out on the road to these real estate clubs like we did a few years back, and getting out, seeing some baseball, getting outside of the house and being around people again. So that's kind of the biggest thing that we're looking at. We're starting a fund as well, because we expect to have a lot of deals that we need to take a look at big discounts and to capitalize. And as I like to say, we're making America great again, one defaulted borrower at a time. So
one defaulted. I love it. I love it. Here's his website, everybody. So if you're looking to check it out, weclosenotes.com is right here. And you're right, man. You got your about. You got all these great training areas, right? Note weekends, note camps, virtual note buying workshops, mastermind classes. And then, of course, there's going to be the media and the podcast and what have you. So I love it, man. I think this is all fantastic stuff. And this all happened overnight for you, right?
Oh, yeah, just overnight. Just snapped I made a pact with the devil, and Satan helped me with everything. I'm just joking. It's a lot. It's 4.5 years of work, figuring things out, trying things. And I think you guys, I love what you're doing. And if you guys are, anybody out there is listening or watching this thing, hit that like button, hit that share button to share. You guys are doing a tremendous job out there. And you just have to get out there and do it. Talk to people that are there. We didn't get to 1 million downloads in a month. We didn't get there in a year. Yeah. I'm at episode like almost 700 of my podcast. I just keep cranking out content and just keep sharing and sharing and sharing and going from there. But focus on one thing. If you try to do too many things, a lot of times it can water down your impact. So start off with one thing, know that one thing, and you'll be a whole lot better off out there.
I love it. Well, that's it, man. Miles and I are busting away at it. Like I said, I think Jen told you earlier, we've been live 6 days almost for a year, almost at our year mark. And I have to tell you, it's been wonderful, but it's trying as well. Going live 6 days a week and interviewing, but it's made a huge impact on what we do and our connections and people that we know. And that's how you got started as well with your podcast and Miles. Miles was doing the same thing. So I think it's all about, I keep going back to it, just being consistent and do it scared. Don't be worried about what people are going to think or say. Do it scared.
What are you going to do for the 1 year anniversary? Because that's a big thing. What are you doing for the 1 year?
It's funny you just said that. I was just talking and thinking about this, but one of the things that I really wanted to do, Scott, is get with some other people like yourself, podcasters, live streamers, and we've been talking about this, and going live 24 hours straight globally, not just here in the country. When it gets to the darker hours, get some of the podcasters from Europe and Russia and Estonia and some of these other, and let's just have a 1 year, 24-hour celebration of trying to grow our industry that we all love so much, construction and real estate. And that's what I'm going to try and put together. If we can have enough people that can do their 1.5 hour segments for 24 hours. I
love it. A couple of years ago, there's June 30th is National International Social Media Day.
Yep.
And September 30th is International Podcast Day. So 3 years ago for International Social Media Day, we decided we were going to go 24 hours and did a 24-hour, basically 27-hour live stream from midnight on the East Coast to midnight the next day on the West Coast. And, wow. and we had people from 15 different countries come on and speak, share their best topics, some 30, sometimes an hour. I had 2 co-hosts. That was really important because I could go take a nap. I probably went through a half case of Red Bull. But we had over 500,000 views during that 27-hour period, and then views afterwards as well. And okay, if you need help, count me in. I'm glad to take an hour and a half for you. I don't care what time it is. I'm glad to jump on and help out there because you can do it. Nobody does it. That's ballsy. 24 hours straight. Woo! The hair's standing on the back of my neck, guys. You can do this. Seriously.
Hey, listen. We got to do it differently. Yeah, if we're thinking about doing it. The thing about LinkedIn, right, we can do it on YouTube and the others. LinkedIn only lets you go 4 hours at a time, so you have to start and come back in. If you're in, I'm in. Let's. I got some other people that are interested in doing it as well. I don't even have to ask Miles. He's up all the time with kids, so he's definitely in.
I'll be there. Yep.
I love it. Let's say hi to a couple people here. I don't know what's going on. It's wonky today with people's comments coming in late, but let's just check it out. We got good old Joel Hutchins. Sorry, joining late. Looking very tan these days, Dave Cooper. Well, yes, I am. I've been hanging out in the sun, and I'm enjoying every bit of it. What's happening, Joel? Joel Hutchins, Australia in the house. Love it. Now, see, Carolina, indeed. Love Dave Cooper Live. Carolina, they have their own podcast as well. Maybe they want to join us on our 24-hour podcasting stream. That would be awesome, awesome, awesome. Greg Ugaldi asks, how many followers does Scott have in total?
Well, if you figure I got 25,000 on LinkedIn, 32 on my business Facebook page, 5,000 my personal page. I've got an email database of about 200,000. So that gives you any insight there for it. But that's built over time. That started meeting people one at a time, taking a business card after a networking event. And I honestly, every night when I would get home from an event, I would drop an email to anybody I met and just say, it was nice meeting you. Let's connect. And that's old fashioned way to do things. These days you can do Evernote or card scan to save a lot of stuff, but you build a database one person at a time.
That's it. That's exactly right. 100%. All right. Who else do we got on? Carolina, Miles, and Dave have huge contagious energy. And she says, Tim and I are in for a 24-hour live.
Look at that.
I love it. See, it's not going to be that hard to fill it. And, you know, we've been fortunate enough to have so many people, and they're also in the industry with their podcast as well. Jen, maybe we can put Jen have the comments up there for their podcast, but you know, they're in the building industry. Carolina's in California. She's in the tile market, has been for years, but they have been in the construction, green space, doing the better space. Tim Sims used to be with Nishiha Siding, which is like a James Hardy product if you're not familiar with them. But now he is with John Burns Real Estate, which is one of the largest real estate consulting firms in the country. So I think we could have a lot of fun with this. All right. Well, listen, there's 3 of 24. We only got 21 to go.
There you go.
Miles,
now,
right?
Put the date down. It is not official until you put a date down for it. Because that's the big goal. Put a date down 90 days from now, man. Because you think about it. That would be great. Social Media Day, June 30th. You know, you fall in line with that. There you go. Right there.
Is that Social Media Day? Didn't even know that. June 30th, Social Media Day?
Yep, I think it's a Wednesday.
Our 1 year is about less than a month from now. Okay. So if we're going to celebrate the 1 year, it'll be sooner than that. But yeah, I got to look at it. If everybody's in, we're in. Let's do it. This is how I ended up doing 6 days a week. I opened my mouth, and I'm one of these guys where a handshake or a comment means everything to me, you know, and even though there's those days where you sit there like, oh, I got to go live again today. It's, you know, being on, I have to tell you, we're in. All right, 24-hour show coming up. We got the people to do it, and we're going to make it happen. Scott Carson is in.
Count me in. Glad to help. Any oddball hour. You don't have to put me in a prime time. I'm glad to be an oddball hour. All right.
Hey, we love prime time, man. Let's do it. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And even on this platform live, we can get up to, I think, 10 or 12 people on here now. So we can do a couple different things, segueing into the other shows and what have you. And, you know, the whole idea would be to make sure that everybody that has their podcasts on the show obviously gets the attention of their podcast from the show. You know, that's the whole idea. How do we all expand and network together and collaborate? Collaboration is the key for all of us being successful.
Yeah, you can create a pretty easy one-page landing page. It's what I did. The lead pages, just a one page, put all the profiles, put their social media opt-in, people they like the show notes, replays. And it adds value to all those that are opted in, even doing like some text messaging opt-ins for people for giveaways, you know, checklists. It becomes a really big wins. Yes, Carolina, this is a Live Lucky hat I purchased after attending Tony Robbins and part of his old mastery thing for sure.
I love it. Let's get Tony Robbins on the show.
Let's do it.
That guy's got a smile bigger than Texas.
Seriously.
I mean,
it's pretty big. He put on. That's one of the most impressive things this last year is watching Tony go from doing a Unleash the Power in-person event like he does usually in Florida to doing virtually in the way that he did it. I was so amazed with 27,000 people all across the globe for 5 days, I guess it was. And just the stuff that he had and how communicative he was and just reaching out to individual people like Caroline and other people to just, hey, what's going on? And the energy he brought. There you go. That's live music and getting people to get up and dance and shake their tush or having things that people can interact. That's a huge, huge thing. I mean, that's a beautiful thing, and we all learn a lot from Tony on that.
You know what? Good idea. Maybe we can add some bands into the mix, right? Some live entertainment on our 24-hour streaming.
DJ, you got a DJ kicking it, yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right, listen, everybody. Thank you for joining us so much. If you are not following Scott, please add to his 25,000 people. That's a whole lot of people to network with. So you should be connecting with Scott Carson just for that reason alone. But other than that, he's a hell of a smart guy. He's funny, and he gave the best advice that anyone has given on this show yet. And that was, if you're going to eat an elephant, don't start with the ass.
That's a t-shirt too, right there.
That is a t-shirt right there. So, but you definitely have to eat an elephant if you're going to grow your network and grow your social media. You just got to start one bite at a time. Scott, man, thank you so much, buddy.
Honor to be here, guys.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Miles, I'm glad to see you got some sleep. I hope that baby's doing well. And
thanks, man.
Congrats.
You know your wife's going to come home and just go like this and hand the baby to you and walk away. That's Absolutely. The way it goes. I love it. What are you doing, man? Is that what you do?
I have a sound machine for $10 I bought from Amazon.
I love it. I love it. I got to get one of those. What I want is the hockey horn, you know.
I have one. I got another one. I got like another green one here. A green screen.
You can't even see it because of the green screen.
That's awesome.
The sound machine. How awesome is that? How awesome. All right, everybody, listen. What's that? Oh, wait a minute. Jen's in the background here. She said, next week, Merrick Mocomer from AutoVol Volumetric Modular help us to celebrate Women in Construction Week. Oh, is Women in Construction Week next week? Yes. Hey, listen, we also do, this would be fun too. Miles and I also do a program called Her Stories in Housing, right? And we do it with the Housing Innovation Alliance. So that's all next week. All right, we got a lot to talk about. Scott, the fact that you're in the real estate world and you're talking about distressed properties and you're talking, we have an affordable housing crisis right now, and people that are working with these notes and bringing these properties back to life and building all this up, that helps with the housing crisis we have. Not just the affordable side, but the shortage in housing we have. So I see a lot of synergies here. I think we should do some more stuff moving forward and talk about some of these things on some of our other shows as well, because this is something that we're really, really focused on, doing it better in our industry.
It's funny that you say that. I'm actually going out and visiting the Austin's most talked about community first here in Austin, Texas. That is the largest affordable home and deal with a lot of homeless people and getting them into transitional housing with tiny homes, RVs, and stuff like that. And so I'm actually set to go out there next week and meet with the owner on that stuff because we're very passionate about it. Austin's got a horrible homeless situation, and the city is botching and spent almost $100 million to have no results. And so, I totally agree with that. Love to be back on, talk about that, pick your guys' brains about some of the things that we can do for that.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be great. I've been to that. I've been to that housing complex in Austin. That's where the first 3D Icon home has been built, and it's actually a really, really cool place. We did some interviews out there, which is great. So, all right, listen, Scott Carson, don't go anywhere. We'll come back to you here in a moment after the outro. To everybody else out there, please hit that like and share button. We are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, because you got to go where the young people are, because they're definitely not coming to us old folks. So if we're going to change our industry, we need them in our industry. I'm Dave Cooper, and of course, you got Miles Biggs Idea, Top 5 Podcast, book writer, author, and TEDx speaker. That's it, Miles. I'm done promoting you, man.
Thanks.
We're done with that now. We're moving on. No, I'm just kidding. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you guys again tomorrow on BS Friday, Building Science Friday. Myself and Mark Bare Naked Willie. We are going to have Mr. Farhan, one of the most famous architects in the world when it comes to green, passive house architecture and design. Looking forward to it. See you guys. Bye now.